It's good to kick off. There's a couple more people coming in. I'll start in 1 minute. Thank you. All right. Hello, everyone. That was a pretty good lead up, and I was standing and listening to a few of the other conversations, and I'm going to say that everything I'm going to talk about is the world according to Daniel, not the world according to Microsoft. But I also want to start with just acknowledging the Gadigal people upon the land that I'm presenting to you from today, and I acknowledge their elders past, present, and emerging. So, and I really loved the conversation from Salesforce around making D&I personal and what it means to you. So I think when you see those moments of inclusion, you get the best out of people. And I do have a topic or some suggestions or learnings that I'll share about within that. So, but I'm going to talk about the impossible dream, and it's delivering transformational goals which maintain performance metrics. So it's kind of that conversation of hearing a lot around sales targets and maintaining sales targets, and then what happens when new metrics get added into the business. And we're at Microsoft, we're very highly metriced across the business, and I'll talk about who has the accountability and some lessons that I've learned. So, but if there are questions, I think there is ways to ask them, ways for me to answer them. You will get an opinion, maybe not the right answer. So a synopsis, and I'll talk a bit about me now. You can read through. I'm not going to read word for word because I can't read too well. But my role at Microsoft is cybersecurity. I've been a product marketing manager throughout my career, probably for about 10 years in different stints. So I've done hardware, and then I did cloud. I've done this role because Microsoft was getting into the cybersecurity business, and they said, and I had to change roles for a personal family reason, and they said, do you want to stop traveling? Come set up the cybersecurity business. And I said, sure. Which I didn't know what I was getting myself into at the time, but we manage 56 products and services across now. Luckily, there are 4 product managers in that team alone. And we had to work with customer success teams. And I think the best way to give an analogy, in any account, there can be up to 15 salespeople selling different things. And the best way you can ask your sales team when you're in a larger organization is just ask them, or ask the product group, what are some of the programs that are run, and instantly, and just get them to write it down. Then you'll start to trying to see the lens through the sales team. There could be like 70 different programs our sales teams need to provide and land to customers on top of their sales quotas and the metrics that we've got. So a bit of appreciation on that, and a bit of reflection on some of the topics and conversations that were today spoken about. All right. So our reality today, and I wanted to start, and these topics are already covered off, where there is intense focus on short-term results. In the tech sector, you can see that whatever pre-COVID or pre-COVID growth, and this amazing growth over the last 2 years, has been lost by most organizations in the tech sector. Some of them are actually in a worse position than from 2019 to today. So not only they need to achieve sales results, the businesses are still growing, they're just not growing as well as they should. So everyone is focused on that. And you can see the latest quarterly earning results from any company, any organization, there's an adjustment. So sales teams are under so much pressure, as well as anyone that's got a revenue quota in their role. Competitive pressure has never been higher. Maybe that's just something that I felt, but I normally ask, like in a team of product marketing managers, who's a competitor of Microsoft, and generally half the room puts their hand up. Like just in Salesforce alone, there's 4 competitors inside that company. And they sell amazing products. They're not bad competitors. They're creating incredible value, as all of our other competitors are. So it's not like we've got the best mousetrap. It's just we're trying to talk about that different value. OpEx budgets are decreasing. Has anyone had an OpEx budget increase this year, this financial year? No? All right. Just wanted to work for you. That OpEx pressure is reducing, and it's not going to transformational metrics. I can tell you that one for free. It's going to sell more and acquire. Not even the retention side is getting the same type. Like we're using non-OpEx budgets for retention. Customer needs have shifted. So talking about what our customers want, there was conversations about, well, let's go where the customer is. I think I always give a different view. Go to where the customer's going to go, because where they are today is not where they're going to be tomorrow, and literally tomorrow. Because in cybersecurity, I can tell that everyone in this room knows cybersecurity. I don't have an awareness issue to talk about what I do. 3 months ago I did, because it wasn't in front page news. We didn't have organizations knocking on the door of every security company saying, shit, what do I need to do? I don't want to be on the news. I'm accountable for that. Government's changing regulations. So the awareness issue's kind of been solved a little bit, but now we've got to talk about, well, how do we help? Not just selling, as I said, mousetraps before. Corporate culture has changed. And what I mean by corporate culture is there was the remote work discussion earlier before. Who works from home? Who works hybrid? Who works... And I remember as a product marketing manager when I first started out, it was really easy for me because my customers all worked in the office. I worked from anywhere. I worked from home. I worked from wherever I wanted to go. But meeting with customers to get those insights, to have those conversations, that's changed. Like, you jump on a call with a customer and you see them as a screen, and then even employees in your organization, you just cannot have the same interactions. You can't get the same information. Generally, the deals that I say, in the biggest deals, they're done in a coffee shop. They're not done in the boardroom. So we've lost that ethnographic research of getting into the customer or looking at those things. So we're dealing with this as a reality. Uncertain macro environments, again, we know that there's so much instability. Even interest rate rises and cost of living and all of those different things are impacting employees. That's what's in the back of their mind. So that's our reality today. And then our organization says, here are our new KPIs. Metrics, goals, scorecards, FY, vision, objectives, and you're accountable. And that's all of us in the room. We're the transformational team. We have to do all the other stuff, but also if the business needs to turn the ship, they're going to come to us for it because we work across the business. We're the people that create that energy. We're the people that do those different things. I'm sure someone might have another name of it, but if you do, let me know. I tried to capture all of them. I think we rebrand them every couple of years around, but we call them scorecards. There you go, it's on the list. But not top of mind, but another company called them KPIs. We probably maintain at an executive level within Australia and New Zealand about 30 different transformational metrics. And I think within that, and they just keep adding every year, so we've got to really try and stop adding more metrics and things like that, but that's the reality we live in. But stopping for a moment, why do we even have these KPIs and these metrics? And I'm using a quote from Peter Drucker is, what gets measured gets managed. So if you need to change certain things, you need to manage it and you need to measure it. So it's the simplest reason why we have these metrics. And I'll get to some of those topics a little bit later about, well, why do we need to understand that and why the company's vision in looking at some of these transformational metrics. So, hey, it's getting measured, it's getting managed, so people are getting paid on it, right? No one's getting paid on it. So our sales teams don't get paid on these transformational metrics generally. So I'm going to share what I did when I saw these transformational metrics and normally set, and there was ivory tower talks before, so someone set overseas or someone who's not as close to the business as us. And I realized there was only one way to be successful at that. Let's look for another job. So that's what I did. I hopped on LinkedIn, tried to find another job, another role. But every company has these metrics, and they're probably the most ambitious metrics that we see. So instead of that, I thought I'd get to work. And I'm going to share 3 principles that personally have helped me through these areas. And the first is creating clarity. The other is generating energy. I think we are the energy department. We do that well when we stand up on stage, when we talk to customers. It's why our sales teams engage us. We're also uncorruptible. I always like to say that is we're the customer. We sit at the table, we represent them when we have conversations to the business. It's probably why we're not commissioned in many instances on those results, is so that we can be unbiased in our opinion. We probably still have some biases, and the last is build a plan, not a PowerPoint. And someone from Microsoft saying build a plan, not a PowerPoint is probably contradictory to itself, but and I'll give some examples of that. And of course, you can use PowerPoint for a plan, but whatever you use it well. So creating clarity. And I'm going to and I'll cover off 4 points on this. This is not a 20-page slide deck, so it's only 10 slides, so we're almost halfway through. But I talk a lot around defining the spirit of the metric, and people may say, find why, or what's the reason for doing it. Why does this matter? Why is the business wanting to look at customer ads? Why does an organization want to look at net promoter score? Why do they want to look at something that seems completely foreign to the sales team? We need to start there, and we need to understand what is that? What's the intention of doing this? Because again, it's most of the time, it's not where the customer is. It's where the customer is going. So think of it in that side. It's like, why are we doing this? Why is it contradictory to our existing strategy, or why is it not just put into the sales targets? The next, document your thoughts. I use Word to document my thoughts. I love pre-reads. It's probably something I learnt. If you want to research an organization that does it really, really well, Amazon, look at some of their pre-reads. Pre-briefings before meetings, hands down, the best thing you can do. If you have the time, and don't do it for every meeting, but write your thoughts down. They're a great communication tool, but it also allows you to get everything on paper versus creating it all in different forms. Whatever medium you use, if it's not Word or a document your thoughts down, a piece of paper, anything from that side. Because it is really good when you get to the stage of communicating that spirit of the metric to the organization, because you send a pre-read. Not everyone's on the same page as you at the same time. Get an executive sponsor. Whilst I said people aren't paid on it, generally your executive team is paid on these transformational KPIs, or their success is very closely linked to how the business is transforming and emerging. So when you think of these scorecards or KPI or whatever you want to call them, ensure there is an executive sponsor. Don't get the executive sponsor that's probably the most likely person that's going to get measured on it. Pick someone very different from the business, maybe a team that you want to influence. So executive sponsorship has helped me greatly within the metrics and managing them. Last one, don't be allergic to numbers. There was numbers spoken about before, which is really good, but a lot of the times in product marketing, we love qualitative insights. We really love talking and telling stories and going into an executive review. And when you're working across the business, stories are nice, but back them up with some of the numbers and the data. Start looking into the information. The conversation at the table here was great. We was talking about retention and acquisition and looking at customer churn, and knowing those numbers on the top of your mind, I think was in the panel discussion earlier. Know the numbers. And present them in that way, because you'll then be able to communicate across the business, not just in our own silos. So creating clarity. So we've all got this great clarity now. I spoke about generating energy. Build a team, brand it, make it special. I don't know if the gentleman's in the room, but MVP. I'd never tell a customer we're doing an MVP. I'd say private preview, something special. Make it cool. I don't want to go to another team meeting. I don't want to go to another virtual team. I want to go something different. So that was some of the things that I do. I call them task forces. Maybe it's a bit nerdy. Maybe it's a bit more military style, because it's tactical. It's maybe short term. It's time bound, but it's different. So when you're thinking about owning a metric, brand it. I don't know, whatever analogy you want to use in your team, but that's why we use code names in product development, right? And they're the coolest product names that you hear in the development team, and then they launch this product and it's like, should have stuck with the code name. That was far better. So we all wanted to work on the code name, not on the product. And so brand it, make it special. That'll get more people excited, and also use a terminology that you're familiar with, so that when it's being had in a conversation, you're able to instantly recognize, okay, we're talking about task forces. You know that you've influenced someone else within that. Be inclusive. Give everyone a seat at the table. What does that mean? Look at all of the people in the organization, and I'm not saying invite the entire company, but invite a representative. I've probably said it 5 times. Give everyone a seat at the table. You're going to appreciate their perspective. They may not know why they're in the room, and I'm going to cover that off a little bit later, but ensure that everyone has the opportunity to attend. So if we're talking about a product group or an engineering group, or we're talking about a customer success team, or the team that manages the partner, even though they're not directly influencing the outcome, ensure they're there, because you're going to get diversity of thought. You want these teams and these metrics and things like that are across the company. So bring everyone in. I think that's on anything in relation to building a go-to-market plan. if you're only working with the people that are going to execute it, you're not getting the full view. Set expectations. So while, as I said, building that plan, look at primary and secondary stakeholders in what you're doing. Ensure people are briefed. It's a common courtesy. I think no agenda, no attender. So look at it from that side. Like, if you get a meeting invite, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to look for the agenda and it's not there, because we just love setting meetings now. So if you're setting something that's strategic and needs to achieve a goal, ensure you've got a really clear agenda, at least on that first meeting of, well, what is your expectation? Back to that executive sponsor. The conversation I have is, your goal here is to look at things that I'm not looking at. It's to see around the corners, or it's to push me further, because all I want to do is hit that metric and go back to my day job, because this is not what I do every day. But that executive sponsor, as soon as it's finished, the first thing they say is, well, what's next? What are we going to do next? How are we going to do more? And you're like, but we've done enough. So they push you further. But setting those expectations of what you want them to contribute and the outcomes that you're wanting to deliver. Share the stage. I'm the only one on the stage today, but I'm representing a lot of different people. It's give everyone the opportunity to talk. We've got introverts, we've got extroverts. Those extroverts love to talk, and there's those introverts within that side. So make sure you're sharing the mic. Also, the best ideas I've ever had has come from someone else. I don't think I've ever had a good idea. I've always heard something, said it was my idea, and then we've done it. But recognize those different ideas. The reason is, we are so in love with what we're doing and so focused, is that we forget to look left and right. So get those ideas. And sometimes it's very difficult within that side, because those ideas are foreign and probably don't fit within the plan we just spent weeks building and going through. So share the stage. Build a plan, not a PowerPoint. I'll talk about this one, and I've got a couple of points a little bit later, but the idea of, and the conversation I've had around metrics and scorecard is that when you take that model of building, let's say, a PowerPoint or a presentation or the review, we let the review drive the rhythm, meaning that we wait for it's kind of like the night before doing your homework or your assignment's due, and you do all the work the night before, then you present it. But you've done absolutely no pre-work. So when these transformational metrics take place, you're going to have to look at them a lot more than the night before a presentation. So definitely think of those review rhythms and ensure that you've got everything lined up prior. Hence why the pre-read helps you so much. Make your message clear. Use the medium that works for you and for your team. So if it is PowerPoint, if it is Slack, if it's whatever it is, use it and build it around that side. Obviously, there's so many different ways we're capturing information. Just ensure that everyone's getting access to it. But don't be confined by whatever technology you've got access to. It can be, the traditional whiteboarding and things like that. Define a course of action. And what I mean by this is when you're looking at achieving a metric or a goal, sometimes you enter the room and you ask for ideas. And that's great, because if you have 3 hours to spare, everyone will give you lots of ideas and lots of opinions, and you're going to collect all those dots, and then you're going to have to put them together. But if you come with a clear course of action and say, okay, well, this is my proposal that we want to do, they're going to give you critique on that plan. Don't be emotionally invested into it, but make sure that everyone can actually have something to start with. The worst type of meetings is when you're coming in and saying, okay, let's go around the table and share your opinion. You get a lot of them, but you don't get anywhere. So you want to be able to start quickly with some of these metrics. And as I said, you can apply that to a lot of different things, including go-to-market. Give that skeleton, give that framework. Don't build it in that meeting. And be open to feedback. I'm still learning that one. Luckily it's not in this presentation of how I take feedback. Be bold, be prepared. And it's going to echo into one of my later points, but being prepared is giving a forecast and an outlook. When we're building a plan or a go-to-market, sometimes we only give one outcome. Is we're going to do all this and we're going to get this many customers. And you don't, or you get more. Businesses don't like surprises, up or down, especially ones that are listed on the public stock exchange. We need consistency, we need precision. Sales teams only have a variance of 3%. So we should hold ourselves to that same accountability, is that we can say, okay, we're going to do this, but a lot of the times we'll sandbag, we'll be a little bit conservative of the outcome. So give the best case so you can show what is the maximum potential if we execute well, the wind's blowing in our favor, the market changes drastically, and we hit there. But then also give the worst case. And sometimes it's what happens if no one in the business aligns to the goal that we're trying to achieve. If we do nothing, where are we going to go? So it lets the business know, okay, there's a variance here. And as I said, a lot of these metrics are time-bound, either 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. And then give the most likely outcome. Give your opinion. The reason I say give those 3 scenarios is that we have short memories. If we look back on something 12 months ago that we did, the business isn't going to remember the you saying in a meeting, okay, we might not hit that number or we may not hit that metric. So define those 3 scenarios. They really help me because it gives the business, at least you set expectations of where we could land. And communicate effectively. Whilst I said look at numbers, the analogies, and I was having a conversation about, and we love analogies in product marketing teams, it's how we simplify, it's how we translate. Storytelling, when you're looking at these metrics, because normally you're going to communicate across the business. So you've got engineering people, but you may have people, like I've had people in HR. I've had a HR sponsor for a transformational metric, which was very focused on security. It was great because she gave me so much different insight on just how to prepare for meetings, just how to do things differently. So analogies and storytelling, incredibly helpful in those forums. Okay, I've been powering through this and I'm going to finish with my top 5 tips. And hopefully they're not too contradictory of what I just said. Measure monthly, connect fortnightly, review weekly, hold your nerve, and don't be defined by your success or failure. I'm going to pick these all at random order. But when I talk about measure monthly, it means speak to the business monthly about how we're going. Even with go-to-market, everything that we do, we should be talking to the business monthly and giving that status update. Of course, if you're pre-release and it's heavily under some NDAs that you can't talk about it internally, then of course you can't do it that way. But measure monthly. Connect fortnightly, your executive sponsor, your team that you connect with. If you're connecting monthly with a team, you just forget about it. Life gets in the way. But if you're reviewing fortnightly, you can forgive people when life gets in the way. That's I was saying before, corporate culture has changed. So you might put a meeting at 3 o'clock. 3 o'clock is not good for me. Even today, my dad's picking up my daughter because my wife's in Melbourne with my other daughter. And so 3 p.m. does not work for me, but you make it work in those odd occasions. But if I had to attend a monthly call, I'd be the most unreliable person at that time because I'd know that that's there. When I talk about reviewing weekly, you personally look at how the business is going every week so that you're not getting surprised. What I said before, you're not letting the review drive the rhythm. You're setting the rhythm. So you know when things are going to go well or bad, and you can call out that risk really, really early. No one likes to get into a review meeting where last month we were calling, let's say from a traffic light system, we're green, and to this month we're red. They go, what happened? And you're trying to explain that is not an easy task. Hold your nerve while being open to ideas to others and getting feedback. What I mean by holding your nerve is if you've given the business an update and you've said you're going to do something, you're going to get pressures if people don't like what you're saying. These could be your executive sponsor or more people more senior than you or other influencers that definitely know more than you. And if you've got a perspective and an outlook, hold your nerve. I've got several examples, but I had one last year where I said the business is not going to achieve this metric. And I said very early, I think I had it for 4 weeks, and I said we're not going to hit it. I gave enough data, I gave enough analytics. The problem is the executive didn't want to tell the country manager that we're going to miss this one. So they said, make it green. And I said, you make it green, I'll make it red. It could be very career limiting, but I gave the example of when we went into the review meeting, I said, it's too early. So my example was, I said, it's too early to give you a forecast. My view is that we're going to miss. And give me 6 weeks and I'll do that. So kind of have the hard conversation early. Don't try and make everything look like roses in the early stages just because you don't know what's happening in the business. Be transparent. It hurts. It really hurts. But it's a good lesson of, as I said, depending on how the metric went. It did miss, but that's beside the point. That executive is still in the business and a great mentor of mine. The last, and this is in our roles in general, I think this is great advice that I'm going to give because I gave it. And it was given to me by someone else. But don't be defined by success or failure. What I mean is that if your business isn't performing, it's not because you're not performing. It's because the business is not performing. You've done everything well. If you're able to articulate that and you're able to be prepared and you've given all those review methodologies, you've involved the entire company and you've worked left to right, you've got everyone possibly focused on this and you still don't succeed, it's not because you failed. It's just because we didn't achieve the outcome. So looking at that, and we can get really hung up on it. I think when a product launch doesn't go well or a new product doesn't do what we want it to do, we take it real personally. Have those moments where you do reflect on it, but don't be defined by that because, my metrics when I first joined the organization, I was given 4, or my team was given 4, and they were all red. The rest of the team was hitting all the numbers and lit up green, and it was demoralizing, is walking into a room and just saying how much you're not performing. So that's my last tip. And on that note, thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Daniel. I really like the have a plan, not a PowerPoint. It's very, very hard-hitting at home. And you know the rule of ideas, right? That first, when I use your idea, it's Daniel said. Then it's someone said. Then it's I said. That's the progression, right? All right. Excellent. We have a couple more. So your Fortnightly Connects, obviously really connected. There's a couple of questions about that. What do you cover in a fortnightly catch-up?
So depending on, and this is probably a good example, is those monthly connects, my executive stakeholder does not sit in those. My executive stakeholder is my confidant. I have one-on-one reviews with them fortnightly. So a lot of the times it's around, the first one is reviewing what happened the 2 weeks before. Then the next connection is preparing for the next review. So you've got 2 rhythms on a fortnightly connect. One is taking all the feedback from the business. So you've kind of measured all those results. So you still have that traffic light system of what's happened and what hasn't. But then also you always have action items. So you're keeping teams accountable on the action items because we're reviewing monthly, right? And you don't want to review with your team monthly the week before someone's on leave. And that's the reason what I cover off in those fortnightlies. So a lot of the times it may be repetitive information, but the first of the quarter or the first fortnightly rhythm is reviewing the last. So there could be a lot of other things or actions we need to take. And the next one is you want to ensure you're getting feedback before you present to the business what you're going to do. So fortnightly, especially on something that's critical. Like if you've got 100 different metrics, then they're not important. If you're down to less than 30, they're important to the business, depending on the size.
Well, I like that. It's the meeting before the meeting, the meeting after the meeting. So without having too many meetings.
Meetings. No,
exactly. Maybe just combine the bottom two here of what are some examples of metrics that you find are useful?
Sure. Customer success is probably your best examples, is customer success. And I'll use it from a SaaS perspective, so I apologize. But think about customers using your products, your technology. So let's say you've had an agreement. So for us as Microsoft, we'll sell a license. And within that license, there's 100 different services. So we'll track to see, has the customer deployed those services? Are they using them? And that's one line of metrics. The other is, you see some of these reports in quarterly earnings calls, where if I was a Salesforce or let's say a Slack example, they talk about how many users they've got. We've got 10 million users. That's probably a metric. That's why they could, you can remember that straight away. It's okay, we've got this many users because they're measuring it that way. So a lot of it's around the customer behavior with the product or services that you're actually providing. A lot of it's around how do we retain those customers. So that would be the example of metrics. There's so many different ways you can look at, even churn as an example. We want to reduce our churn from 20% to 10%. That's a really ambitious goal, but it may be let's reduce our churn 2%. And that can be a metric that you then look at. And you can then, as I said, you can measure that, you can check it weekly, you can measure it fortnightly, and have those discussions. Because I said, if you've got a churn conversation and you've got 12 reviews, there's only 12 opportunities to create change. I see the other question. I can ask myself that question.
Yeah.
How do you come up with cool names and branding initiatives or task forces? Generally, I go in without a name, and then people decide on names. I think the last one I did was people picked the Greek god of war. And so there's just depending on the team and how they feel. Sometimes they can pick analogies of movies or what's in pop culture. I think there was Game of Thrones analogies that were used. But people will pick something, but open it up to the team within that. Generally, I call it a task force, and then I'll put a product name in front of it. So maybe that's not a good example, but it's, as I said, you can always change those different those examples.
So maybe the last one. Are you primarily working on product launches, or do you have other initiatives that you look after as well?
All of them are great questions. And are we working on product launches? Yes, but let's say the product from itself. So I do a few. I do incubation, so new products coming to market, and that's very interesting because you are working with engineering and you get all the contracts and sign of all these agreements that you can't tell anyone, can't tell your wife, or you're going to get sued. They're lots of fun, so I do work on those. Probably they come up, I'd say, 2 times a year. Normally they're around some big event that we do, an announcement. So if you're an Apple person, it's going to be the iPhone 15 or something, whatever's next. So yes, we do those type of products. Sometimes we just do incremental improvements of existing products, or we do net new products, new markets to new customers, to new technologies. Some of that can be just completely foreign, but that would be longer projects, but a lot more tactical. The other is then the day-to-day in go-to-market. So that's like looking at awareness. So I think the way that I would describe my role is a lot's around awareness. The next is around creating a connected customer experience, avoiding when a Microsoft sales team approaches a customer, we're not falling over each other in the car park, or we don't open up the door and all the clowns jump out because we've got 15 salespeople. So thinking of that is the other. So how do we have that connected experience with our customers? And then the final is product evangelism. So how are we the spokesperson for our product or our technology? They're the 3 ways that I'd classify my role.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Daniel.
Thank you.